Adam said he was recruiting top-level agents. I was not a top-level agent when I came over, and I was brand new and didn't know anything about real estate. And I'll get into it a little bit here, but I was in mid-level management and big box retail. Hopefully you can hear me a little bit better now. Big box retail, and just tried to work my way up into the corporate world. Never really made it past $60,000 a year income, and just got frustrated with that. Finally graduated college at the age of 30, and had the quintessential talk of, what do you want to do next? And I said, well, maybe I'll get into real estate. My father-in-law, future father-in-law, was a successful agent in Savannah, and my uncle was a commercial agent in Seattle. So thank God I did. It opened it up to my mind to people like you, and just a lot bigger thinking. So like Adam said, I'm John Wells. This is my wife, Sam. And
I'm the hype twin today, is what I'm going to call myself.
Yeah, there's three of us, if you can't tell. Yeah. She's pregnant, and we are expecting our third, so really excited about that.
Hey, thank you.
We own a company called Legacy Link, and we, like Adam said, we own just over 400 doors as a general partner, and meaning we're the owner-operators of that. And what we're going to go through here is just a little bit about who we are, a brief multifamily overview, and I'm going to hold this so you can hear me. And a case study. Is that better? That's a lot better, isn't it? All right. And answer any questions you have at the end. So that might be a little too good. All right, so when we got together, we had a negative net worth of $120,000, and we got together, and we were kind of in the Dave Ramsey kick, or I was, and dragging her along the whole way. And I knew we had to get our finances together, so we wrote it all down and found out, hey, we are way negative net worth here. But we're going to be millionaires, babe, I guarantee you. And we have huge negative cash flow. Now we have over $12K a month in passive income. That doesn't include our operating income, which I don't count. Over 400 doors. And now we are coaches with multifamily syndication company. So the assets we own on the left are the general partnerships, where we're the owner-operators in different states. Oakwood Village in Augusta, Georgia, 145 units. Lake City, Florida, 101 units. We bought that about 2 years ago. That was one of our first acquisitions. We're going full cycle on that and selling that. It should close by the end of the month, and we are hitting our 10-year projections on that, so we're really excited about that. Arbors is 72 units in Springdale, Arkansas, 60 in Slippery Rock, Pennsylvania, and Pennsylvania. And Eagle Gate, which is in Statesboro, Georgia, where we met, at 26 units. So the LP side on the right are limited partnerships where we just invest passively. We just put money up, and there's no activity in it. It's 100% passive, so it's just a big ego number, really, more than anything. So this is the #1 podcast for multifamily investing in the world. Rod Khleif with Lifetime Cash Flow through multifamily investing. We're frequent guests on there. And these are some of our friends. We're part of some big names. That's Gino of Jake and Gino. We just went to Iceland for a mastermind in April. That was super fun. And our partner Iggy, we're just on his podcast. So these are, again, some of the beautiful assets we've bought over the years. So our goal today is stretch your thinking on what's possible. I challenge you to ask, how can I do this? If you're interested in doing it, don't ask, I can't afford that, or rule it out. Just ask, how can I? And we'll talk about mindset and heart set, your why, and chasing lifestyle, and why we're focused on chasing lifestyle and not money. So how much money do you need to buy a $10 million multifamily asset? Any guesses? So none is the right answer. So no one starts because they don't think it's possible, and we're going to show you that it's possible now. You don't need any money, and you don't need any experience. I know that's crazy to think about. So, I'll throw it over to Sam. You can talk a little bit about
Thank
that.
you. Good intro. My mind's all over the place with my inner child and hype twin, and what a great experience it's been so far. If you could have told me 3 years ago that this is where I'd be, I told you no way. Really, for the slide he just showed, how much money do you need? Zero. Jonathan continued to surround himself by really big thinkers, and it creeped into our household little by little. He'd say, let's sit at the kitchen table and list our debts. And I'm like, oh, I'd rather have a sharp stick in my eye than do that. And it really is not a joke that I got drug along for the ride. And I am so thankful now, that happened. So I was kind of like, supportive, but in my head, I'm like, sure, we'll be millionaires, and like, there's no way, possible. And so he would listen to podcasts and YouTube videos and all. We'd be, driving to North Carolina or whatever, and I'm falling asleep in the passenger seat while he's, listening to another podcast on multifamily or growth. And that's kind of been the theme, I think, really for today. And something that I want to hit home is like, I really share my story to say that I was not a residential realtor, knew nothing about real estate, and anything is seriously possible if you take the action. So he asked, oh, will you take this boot camp with me? And I'm like, sure. It was not exercise. It was a virtual, it was right when COVID had happened, May of 2020, virtual 2-day boot camp. So we holed up in an office, and I thought, well, that'll kind of, quiet everything down, and I can just go back and do something else, and we don't have to talk about multifamily anymore. I didn't even know multifamily was apartment complexes. That's how little I knew about it. So if you didn't know, now you do. We took the boot camp, and thankfully I saw people who were like us, but they were farther along down the path, and they were actually doing it. And so I thought, well, maybe there's something to that. I said, let's join the coaching program. And I thought once we did that, like, the passive income will just flow on to us and everything will be good, limited amount of work. That was not the experience that I had. Sally and they were talking about stay ready, and you wait and wait and wait until you're like, I have enough knowledge, or I have this, and then I'm going to make that move. And that was really the cycle I had gotten caught in. Is we took that boot camp, but I was terrified because I really didn't have the knowledge, so what do I really have to offer? What can I really do? And I was on maternity leave with our second child, trying to decide, do I go back at 8 weeks? Do I go back to 12 weeks? And pardon me, but I said, this is bullshit. And I do not want to live my life working for somebody else. And lo and behold, I had found myself listening to multifamily podcast, and they said, play to your strengths. If you're not good at numbers, don't do the underwriting. If you're good at building relationships, then call sellers, call brokers. And I'd been in business development for years, and I thought, well, I build relationships for someone else. Why don't I start doing it for our company? So I made the first phone call to a broker. It was January 11th, and ended up being able to quit that W-2 in November of that year. I'd like to say that was a really easy process. It was not. I did a lot of, after we get the kids to bed and all that, then I'm trying to educate myself and make phone calls. And we really had to plan out, our time and work together as a team. But to be able to do that, and the whole goal for, I think, all of us and for our family is to have time freedom. That's why I have the growth, so that I can have those healthy relationships. And our story doesn't, is not everyone's, but that is what, I really wanted once I realized it was attainable. And at the beginning, when it's like, somebody owns that apartment complex, I'm like, you're insane, But the real truth of it is, we didn't need a whole bunch of money, and we needed good partnerships, which we'll talk about as we go.
So, like I said, we got together and put our net worth together. I already talked about this, so I'm going to skip this slide.
It's a good picture.
I jumped ahead. All right.
So why multifamily in particular? You know, we've had stocks, we've had 401ks, Jonathan's had some single family. What we love about multifamily is the passive income that it brings. So we can 10x our passive income from buying a 100-unit apartment complex versus having a duplex or a single family that may pay $200 a month. I'm not knocking any of that. This is just what we've found. The other thing is, and especially for a bunch of people in here having the real estate professional designation, the tax benefits, we have legally not paid taxes in the past 3 or 4 years. The depreciation that you get, it's huge. And then the other thing is, it's a necessary and safe business. I think pandemic, everyone was like, you know, what's going to happen? Multifamily values skyrocketed. Everybody needed a safe place to live. And in fact, they needed, they needed that more than they needed an office or a retail space. The other thing is we're buying a cash flowing business from day one. So we get, the first thing we do when we look at a deal is look at the profit and loss statement, the 12-month financial report from the current owner, and we look for opportunities that are going to cash flow from the moment that we close. The other thing that I love about it is it's a team sport, and I did not love that from the beginning. I had a little bit of scarcity mindset, like, you know, I want the whole piece of the pie. I'm scared to give away. I wanted to get out of my job so badly. You know, talk about that pain point. I didn't get started until I had that real moment of pain where whatever it takes, I'm willing to do it. Now I'm going to give away some of the pie to someone else. No way. Once I got over that and said, I don't need this, you know, small grape, the whole piece of the grape. I can have a large piece of a watermelon by partnering with someone who is good at things that I'm not good at. You know, that way I don't have to waste my time and energy on that. As they said, stay in that area where, you know, you thrive, and that's where the money will come if you stay in that zone. And multifamily really allows you to do that by partnering with the right people and people who are a lot smarter than we are, which always helps.
Yeah, I thank God that she got into this and really caught onto it and needed a way out from the W-2, and there was a big enough pain there because we wouldn't have half the success that we do in this business without her. I mean, she is absolutely instrumental in it. And if you have a spouse, you don't have to do this, but I encourage you to bring them along with whatever journey you are going on. It was the best thing best decision I've ever made.
There were some learning curves along the way, okay? But there still are, but it's really helped us also, I think, grow, just figuring out, you know, our different niches and who's doing what.
Oh yeah, we've grown. It'll force you to grow as a couple, for sure.
We've been growing today, listening to everything everybody said.
So differences between residential and commercial real estate, 1 to 4 doors is residential typically. You do have to have a personal guarantee on the property, so you have to put up your own assets. If the mortgage doesn't get paid, the bank is going to come after you and take your personal assets. You also have to have a good credit rating and a good debt to income, right? We all know that, most agents in here don't. And then it's comparative market approach to value it. So the house across the street sold for this amount, that means my house is worth this amount. In commercial, it's typically thought of as 5 or more doors. You can get non-recourse debt, which means they only go after the property if the mortgage is defaulted on. If the business fails, they're going to take the property back. They're not going to go after your personal assets. And then they evaluate the property over the signer on the loan. So they just care about how well the asset cash flows. They're not looking at your debt to income ratio or your credit score or anything like that. There are a couple things that they need. You do have to have 10% in liquidity for the loan amount. So if you're getting a $10 million loan, you have to have $1 million in liquidity. But that's just not Sam and I. That's us and any partner that we have involved in the deal as well. So we can add up all that liquidity. Again, it's a team sport to qualify for that. And then we have to have a net worth that's equal to the loan amount also. So again, we can add up everyone's net worth and get it equal to loan amount, and we qualify for the loan. Make sense? And then they value the property through income approach. So they value it just like a business. So what is awesome about this is if we increase the net operating income of the asset, either increase income or lower expenses, we increase the value of the property. So we can force the appreciation, which is, we got a lot more control, which is awesome. And to show that, so if we just raise rents $25 over 200 units, we divide that by something called a cap rate. I'll explain that. But if you divide it by 6 cap, which is very conservative, it adds $1 million of value to the property. So when you rent a place and they're charging you a $25 pet fee, that's why they're doing it, because they're increasing the value significantly. Like, the most important number here is the number of doors. And that's why, because of the power of the exponential growth on the value.
And that's huge, you guys, because you can look at the opportunity within your own property. So let's say everybody has a washer and dryer and you've got a laundry room on the property. You can convert that into a unit. You can charge a pet fee. There's application fees. But the other thing is, we target a lot of mom and pop owners, so to speak. A lot of times their expenses are, way out of line. We drove a property that we ended up not buying. We were doing due diligence on it. And every time we went to the property, there were 4 maintenance men standing there. And so while we were doing due diligence, we said, well, what do you guys really need to really be able to make the property what you think it needs to be? And it's like, we need more maintenance men. And it's like, there's a payroll opportunity there for expenses. It's just looking at the business and seeing you have the control in the value of the property for the most part.
So who wants to talk about some real estate terms? I don't think you heard me. Who wants to talk about real? All right. So NOI is net operating income. Income minus expenses is net operating income. Cash flow, our favorite word, is net operating income minus the debt service, so the mortgage payment. Anything after that is called cash flow. That gets distributed to all the owners. Cash on cash is a return metric based on, if you invest $100,000 into a deal, it spits off $7,000 a year. That's a 7% cash on cash return. Average annual rate of return is the amount that you make over the whole life cycle of the property. So if over a 5-year period you double your equity, so you go from 100,000 to 200,000, that's 100% return divided by 5 years. That's 20% average annual rate of return. And then your cap rate is, let's say you buy the property for cash, $10 million cash. It spits off $600,000 in net operating income. That's a 6% cap rate. Make sense? All right. So criteria, what we look for in a deal, the number one thing is the market first. We buy the market first. We want to see a growing population, growing income, career diversity, job growth, high median household price. Landlord-friendly state is super important. And then we look at what's the story of the property. So how can we, essentially what we're trying to do is increase the value of the property as fast as possible so we can go back to the bank and pull all our cash back out so we have no money in the deal and all the cash flow is infinite returns from then on. So that, it's just like the Burr method, but on steroids, right? So to do that, we got to find a story. So our rents under market, that's our favorite thing. We don't have to do anything. Normally it's a 20-year, owner that's owned it forever, mom and pop. They've got really bad financials. They're more worried about keeping it 100% full before raising rents. So we can go in day one and raise rents without doing anything at all. And is there a way to force appreciation? So getting rid of inefficiencies, maybe we need to upgrade some things, add some amenities, put granite countertops, something like that. All right.
I think I'm next. We'll talk about a deal that, how do I move this forward?
Yep.
What, this?
Yeah.
That we did not do. So the biggest thing, first and foremost, is the market when we're looking at it, as Jonathan said. I would have saved myself a lot of time if I would have, at the beginning, I'd find this great deal that cash flow is really good. And I'd run up the stairs to Jonathan, who's calling, residential sellers. And he's like, yes, babe. And I'm like, I found a deal. What's the market like, Sam? And I'm like, well, let me explain it to you, And rule number one, you have to have the right market. So this particular deal was in Greensboro, North Carolina. It's 240 units. It was two different assets. Again, this is one we did not buy. I think it was the green doors. I couldn't quite wrap my head around the green doors. But it was a 100 unit that was majority one bedrooms, 96 one beds. And then the other asset was all two bedrooms. We had the option to purchase just the one Gate City, which was all one bedrooms. But again, it's all about, evaluating your risk, evaluating where you can push the income and all to. One bedrooms have a higher turnover rate, and then you just have one, unit mix. You just got all one bedrooms. So we were going to package them together. You guys may be able to see this, hopefully. It's a little smaller than it was on the computer. But the deal we were looking at, the view at Greensboro, is the one in blue all the way down at the bottom. And then Gate City is number 9 up there. That was the other one. So this is by rent per square foot. The number 1 up there, Yanceyville Street, is one that we were partners in, and we had turned that one around from the bottom all the way to the top. So we had proof of concept. So this deal, I'm like, this is great. It's 240 units. It's exactly what we're looking for. We're starting our due diligence process, which is where we ask ourselves, why do we not want to buy this deal? We met with the owner on site. He was great. He talked about all the renovations he'd done. He'd really taken the property to the 5-yard line. We already have the property manager in place from the other property we can pull over, and I'm the one who's finding deals. So part of I've been in business development. My personality is like, if you dangle a carrot in front of me, I'm going after the carrot. So that's really a wonderful attribute until you get really excited about something and you're like, no, but wait, because my emotions can come into play. It's what you're working so hard for. And that's the value of the team and it not being a solo sport, is that you've got multiple eyes, evaluating where you are, where can you take this thing. So we had some really nice projections on this one. We were going to do 7 to 8% cash on cash, as Jonathan explained, 16 to 18% average annual rate of return, 7% preferred return to the investors. And when we got, the collections were continuing to trend in the right direction until we had gone under contract and we got that month's collections, and they dropped by $20,000, which may not sound like a lot in this space, but it is when you're looking at, $100,000 a month and you cut that by 20 grand. Our proceeds from the loan amount that we were going to get got cut a little bit. We still would have hit those returns, but it would have been a headache. It would have been more than a project that we wanted to take on. We would have been spending a lot of time probably trying to collect. And at the end of the day, we decided this is not one that we want to pursue. I looked at, before we found our first apartment complex, 258 assets until we got the one that we closed on. And that is not everyone's experience. You do not have to do that. But we are putting our money in alongside our investors. So on that LP GP side, each deal that we own as a GP, we also put in as an LP. So we want our money to go out there and work for us. We want to protect our money that we've worked really hard for, and we want to protect our investors' money. And so at the end of the day, we look at a lot of deals to say, okay, this is not one that, we want to pursue.
Yeah, it's a lot about reputation too. I mean, if you have a deal go south, it ruins your reputation, and you really don't want that. Also, I think they told us you got to look at 100 deals to be able to buy one. So it was a race, and our mindset was, let's race to 100. How fast can we see 100 deals? And
we doubled it.
So, but that's good because we're very picky. So this is a deal we did do in Augusta, Georgia. It's a cardinal build. And again, the market is the most important thing. This is a good map of what that market looks like. One of the things we look at, not only jobs and career diversity, income growth, population growth, is there's big corporations that do a ton of research and they spend a lot of money to put, especially Starbucks. Like, we love to see Starbucks near our assets because they've done all the research for us in that market. This one has a couple Starbucks right next to it, and this is our favorite part at Apple Store right there too. So that's proof positive. This is a good area.
I will literally go through when we're first starting to look at a deal, and we'll Google Maps how far away is the closest Starbucks. And I do like coffee, but it's not, of course, the only metric that we use. But they've put in millions of dollars of research, so that's always a great sign.
Left side is current average rents. When we took over the property, on the right, it's the target, our 18 months pro forma, what we were intending to take it to. So these are two assets again. The bottom one was a 20-year-old mom and pop seller. They had never done any renovations, still 1980s wallpaper on the wall. Exactly what we want to see. It looked amazing on the outside. When you drive the property, it looked fantastic. Really well kept, just never updated. So our goal was to come in and go hit these rents. We're actually achieving above these rents. We've only owned it for just over a quarter now. And this is what we're intending to do to increase those rents. We're going to spend $871,000 to do that. And, convert the laundry room, make it nicer, do some interior upgrades, dog run, some deferred maintenance there at the bottom. And then we always add in a contingency to make sure we have a buffer for anything. So we've only spent about 5% of this budget so far, and we're achieving those rents. So that is a huge win.
And this is CapEx, or capital expenditures. We have this on every single deal, but it's anything that you're going to anticipate doing to the property or need to do to the property that's outside your regular monthly expenses. So it's not your payroll or your electric bill. All of that goes into your P&L. It's called above the line, but your capital expenditures or anything you're going to do to the property, like roofs, HVACs, that sort of thing.
So this was our loan terms. Where's the mortgage lender in here? Can I get that rate again, please? 3.65. Do you think we'll ever see that again? Hopefully.
No.
No? Never?
I don't either.
We had 12 months interest only on it. We always pack in some reserves there, so always at least 3 months of reserves. So if we weren't able to pay, if no income came in, we'd be able to pay our bills for 3 full months. And so this is, when someone invests with us, that's what it looks like, $100,000, year 1, 6%, year 2 and 3, and the 8s and the 9s after that. And then after the full disposition and a sale in year 5, it'd be $100,000 turns into $226,000. So
the other thing real fast that we look at on deals is what is the break even. So on that particular deal, we could be 65% occupied and still be able to pay our expenses and our mortgage and still have that $300,000 in the bank. So it's always about safeguarding, the asset and the investment.
So how do you get involved in something like this? So the number one thing is education around it. There's a lot of opportunities, especially as a residential agent. You are going to run into this throughout your career at some time when you find a 100-unit deal or a seller that you don't know what to do with it. And you could why not own it? You find a deal and bring it to someone like us or any other operator, they will take it down with you. They'll do everything, and you're going to own a piece of that. So this was our journey, just a 3-step journey to get into this, and it's just invest in a limited partnership and see what that's like on that side of the deal. So, take advantage of, when you invest as a limited partner, you actually own part of the real estate. So you get all the benefits of that transaction. So you get all the depreciation, all the benefits that come with that. And then get on a GP, earn a spot. So we need help. We're always looking for team members, underwriting, due diligence, raising capital. And then once you are on a general partnership with someone, then you will have the confidence, I guarantee you, when you find a deal, to assemble your own team and take it down on your own.
A couple of things about that. I think we'll talk about it maybe in the next slide. But our first investment as an LP was $5,000, and that deal has not sold. So every month we get $15.86 that I always shoot Jonathan the email, and we're like, mailbox money, because that was our start, and that got our feet wet into it, and really helped us learn what it looks like from that side of the investment.
Yeah, I think one of the best books I read was Secrets of the Millionaire Mind, and he talks about people not celebrating any like the little money that comes in, like the $2 that comes into your account, you're like, pff, you blow that off, and it like limits yourself from the attraction of more money. So if you blow off the little amounts, subconsciously you're blowing off the big amounts. And he talks about picking up, when you step over a penny, pick that up when you're walking in, and he kisses it and says, thank you, universe, for giving me this money, So that $15 makes me think of that all the time. So some action steps for you. I'd encourage you to figure out what your financial freedom number is if you haven't already. Write down all your monthly expenses and add some savings into that. You need a target. We do have a resource on the next slide I'll share with you that will help you track that, and you can go after financial vitality and a lifestyle beyond your dreams. And then track your passive income. So how many people in here know how much passive income they have bringing in right now? Like exactly. Well, that's awesome. So if you're not tracking it, make sure you're tracking it. Whatever's tracked will grow. And then store, 40% or more of your income. So that's the goal. I hear 10 or 20%. Someone challenged, you should be storing at least 40% of everything you earn. So how much money do you have to make to be able to store 40% and then invest into bigger deals? So store a lot, store, a big chunk of money and put it into a sure thing. And then keep from your expenses from rising. So Parkinson's law, work expands to the time you allow it. Your expenses will expand to your income growth. We've probably all experienced that. So the big challenge is, how do you keep your expenses low and get educated? So
I want to just touch on that real fast. It seems so simple just to write down your expenses, or I had no idea. It's like taking the blanket off the lamp to illuminate the room. I had no idea what number we needed to hit. So we picked some arbitrary goal, $5,000 a month. What is that really going to do for us? And until I could really look at it, here's where we are. Here's where Jonathan acts like we can go. I'm sure we can get there, but until we really did that, and you guys, it was really like, we didn't start this part, 3 years ago. We started this like when we got married. But just listing, here's where we are and how do we get there, really it's that hockey stick effect. I mean, we just chipped away, and then really multifamily helped us obviously 10x, but being aware of what the goal was really half the battle.
This is that resource I mentioned. So at the top, it just gives you what's your financial freedom security level, and then vitality, so getting some more luxury items, and then complete independence. So if you want that, reach out to us. We'll be happy to share that with you. We do have a 6-week course we recorded on the I Love Coaching platform. You can check that out. There is a QR code in the handout, and also I'll share one here too. So it goes over everything you need to know about taking one of these deals down: mindset, deal flow, underwriting, putting your team together, due diligence, and actually operating the asset. And then our website is legacylink.info. We'd love if you clicked on there and reach out to us. This whole, just like residential, multifamily for us is a people business. It's about who you know. That helps us with everything: deal flow and taking deals down and helping each other out. So I would love nothing more if everyone in here reached out to us. We'd connect with you and have a call, and if it's just finding out who you are and what you do and how I can help you, we love that. So
Just to touch on that, when they were talking about the saying yes, and you don't really know what's going to happen when you're saying yes, but whether or not you feel like you're ready to do that or not, if any piece of you is curious about this, please reach out or say yes to someone else that that's doing it. I didn't want to come up here and speak today, to be honest, but Jonathan continues to say yes to a lot of things, and so I love that.
That's Adam's fault.
If you're not waking up vomiting every day, you're doing it wrong. I thought that was hilarious, because it's constantly getting out of your comfort zone. And we did a workshop not that long ago, maybe a year ago or less than, that I did not want to do. I do not want to get up and talk in front of people. I can call a broker, I can underwrite a deal. This is not what I love doing, but as a result of that, we met someone from a local bank. We developed a relationship with that bank. We didn't know all this was going to happen, but eventually we ended up getting an 80-unit apartment complex in Mount Pleasant that we've just been dying to get our hands on. And had we not have said, okay, we'll do that, like if the fear would have kept me from calling a broker, or if the fear would have kept me from, okay, I'm not going to speak, at that event, we never would have had those experiences. And so I think that's the biggest part of my story is like, the money and all that is wonderful. Like I want to create a legacy and spend time with my kids, but it's really like that, just being out of your comfort zone and saying yes, the opportunities that really come from that we have no idea at the time what's coming down the line. So if you have any, like someone said, only 2 or 3 people reach out to you after something like this, but if you really are interested, we would love to connect with everybody.
Yeah, you never know where it'll go. So when we do connect with you, you will have access to any future deals we potentially have through our portal. And then on the left, QR code for I Love Coaching platform, and then on the right, Legacy Link info. That's it.
Nice job. Give him a big old hand. I don't know why I got blamed for that. So, let me dive into some questions here. Limiting beliefs around getting into something that seems huge, right? 120 unit deal, 100 deal, 200 deal. Gosh, what can we do to help anybody in here? Because we're not going to point fingers, but I can tell you, prior to getting into deals with you guys, I even had limiting beliefs that I couldn't do something like that. So, what can we share with them? What would you share with anybody that says, gosh, I just don't think I can do this?
I'll tell you what a mentor told me, and he said your first deal, you should never buy anything less than 60 doors. And that just blew my mind. And that was about 5 years ago too. And I was like, how in the world can you buy 60 doors for your first deal? Like I could barely afford a duplex. And that question is, how do I do that? I just carried that. It took me 2 or 3 years. We're giving you all the answers right here on how you can do that if you want to get educated on it. But that went on the journey of the podcasts, the trainings, the boot camps, the masterminds, the coaching programs, and got us to where we are now. So just the question, I think, is what it took for me. But, the biggest thing is like, okay, I have to buy 100 doors or more. The first thing, and tell me if I'm wrong, but most people go, okay, well, maybe I could start out with 20 or 10. Like that's our first inclination is how low can we go? And I'm going to challenge you, like, push it. You can go higher, and that's our challenge now is we got to stay above 100. So. Well,
and the unless you have 80 units in Mount Pleasant. But the real thing is you're going to do the work regardless if you're buying a single family or if you're going to do 10 doors. You're still going to probably raise the equity. You're still going to use an attorney. You're still going to have to look at property management or manage it yourself. You're doing all the same work, but without 10x the profits that come from it. So that was a big thing for me, is just wrapping my head around, we're going to do it one way or another. Let's shoot big.
Our goal was also just 10 hours a week too. So we have a very busy life. She had a full-time job. I had a full-time real estate gig, selling a bunch of real estate. 2 kids, like barely no time, right? But if you can set aside 10 hours for anything that you're doing, you can make some headway on it.
That's good. And the other thing that I love what I heard you say there was you started to know and you learned your own numbers, right? So you knew your own numbers related to the family P&L, right?
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Yeah, and that was something that you had to get into, regardless of what your ego was telling you at the time. You had to know your numbers.
Yeah, there was no judgment. It was just like, this is what it is. So we just had to get it out. And I think Dave, I don't agree with all his stuff now, but that was really helpful with that. Just let's pull it all out. This is what it is. Now we can go somewhere with it.
Right.
And that, okay, so, and then we'll open it up here just in 1 second. What's the goal now? What's the goal now? So I heard nothing less than 100 unit deal. What's the goal now?
Well, we're having a baby, but we're going to be doing 4 acquisitions next year is the goal. So 1 asset a quarter, and then we want to.
Really, the intention is to hire someone to help us with asset management. So we have a very special time in our life where we got a 3-year-old, a 1-year-old, and one on the way, and we hear a lot of people that miss this part of their kids' lives. So our intention is really to focus on that after this. So.
And now I'll share with them how many underwriting, how many times, well, let's see here. You underwrite how many deals to find one?
Well, the first was 258. I've scaled it back a little bit, but it's between 100 and 150 to find the one. I've gotten better about it and faster, with I can look at the market and say, don't look at it, Sam, whereas at the beginning, I was just so hungry, and I still am, but I kind of realized if I put my priorities over here, I can move a lot faster than looking at a deal in the market we're never going to buy.
Yeah, gotcha. And it was up to 300 at one time, wasn't it?
Yeah, I continue keeping track, but every time I get a deal, then we start the track record over. So
That's good. Okay, so let's open this up for questions. What do we have our ahas here as it relates to multifamily investing? Yes, Teresa.
My question, Sam, when you say know the market, obviously there's got to be more to it than looking for a Starbucks.
yes. So when we first started, we had, I don't know if we talked about really the network as much as the network that you have is huge. We really are trying to focus on North Carolina, Georgia, South Carolina, somewhere where we can drive to if, everything hits the fan at one time, we can get there. The first things I look at, there's a website called City Data, and I look at population growth. We want to see 20% at least over the past 20 years. And then we look at median household income, median household value. So I can look at those 3 things. Median household income and median household value. Those 3 things are the very first 3 things on City Data, and I can just rule it out instantly. So if I didn't know, I hate to throw out a market here, but let's say I didn't know Somerville, and it's a great market, but if I didn't know that, I would go to City Data and I would say, okay, these 3 boxes it checks, instantly. Now let me look into what sort of jobs are there, what's the career growth like. Once you kind of get, okay, Somerville as a whole is probably a good market. Here's where the asset is. What can the asset really do within this area? So Google Street View is your friend. We spend many, Jonathan's always like, well, I looked at it on Google Street View, and here's what I'm like, But you can really now, with the way technology is, you can walk the streets of a place. So we've changed from when we first started. We have an asset in Slippery Rock, Pennsylvania, which is doing great. And we have partners actually local to that area, so they knew the market. Jonathan and I, as part of the goal for next year, is really trying to stay honed in on the surrounding areas.
Hello? Is this on? You briefly mentioned landlord-friendly state. Can you talk a little bit more about that?
Not California, not New York. Really, we're just looking for laws that are fair to both tenant and landlord, where someone can't take over a unit and, we still got a mortgage and bills to pay where we need paying tenants. So that's landlord friendly, where it's not ridiculously favored towards the tenant. It should be fair for both. And that's typically Southeast. I hate to say it, election was yesterday, but it's mostly red states that are landlord friendly.
It sounds like you're not actually managing these yourself. So can you talk about what you look for in a property manager?
Experience.
Yeah, experience. We actually pay a consultant who's worked for very large property management companies, and so we keep that in-house, but we outsource to her. And then we have weekly meetings. She's actually on site So when we first did Augusta, for instance, we knew we were going to have to get rid of the property manager. So our consultant was actually on site. We don't want, well, this is another job, but we don't want another job. So we outsource that to the property manager. And the biggest thing is market knowledge and experience.
Gotcha, perfect. Who else? Any ahas? Yes, Todd.
Thanks for being here. What is your role as a general partner, and is there income out of the business to you all as GP?
So what is the role as a GP and what is the income that's provided from being a GP, right? Okay.
Great question. So finding the deal is part of being a GP. So luckily we have, thanks to Sam, we find a lot of deals. Raising capital is very important to take the deal down. Due diligence, really important. So a lot of front end stuff, underwriting the deal. And then once we acquire the property, doing asset management, implementing the business plan, which is, get rid of inefficiencies or force the value with doing some updates or increasing rents one way or another. So that's our role, essentially. I think the second part of the question was, how do we get paid? Is that right? So normally we get paid up front an acquisition fee, and usually we don't make, other than a small asset management fee, which is like 2% of the gross collected income, which is, maybe around $20,000 a year on a deal. We really don't make a whole lot of money until we've forced that value and return all the equity back to investors. That's when the second windfall happens. Did I confuse everyone thoroughly? Okay. Yeah.
Hold on, Ben. Hold on. Can you pass that?
When COVID first hit, a lot of people got reprieve from paying rent. How did that impact you? And I mean, that was a federally driven initiative.
For us, honestly, and our assets, we really were not impacted at all. I think good communication with tenants, people really don't want to be behind if it's at all possible. I will say that I underwrote a lot of deals in different areas than this where the financials were and still can be really out of whack as a result of COVID. So there were, some catch-ups on federal funding that was given, that sort of thing, where the financials are low one month, but then the collections are high again in, the following months thereafter. So you'll see some kind of mountains and valleys in the financials. For our assets in particular, we really were not impacted.
I mean, it was mainly with communication. So just, hey, here's what the law says, and we were communicating that with the tenants. So if they had a legitimate reason for not paying rent, it's not like, hey, everyone doesn't have to pay the rent anymore. It's COVID, you have to lose your job, you lost the income. There's actual laws and reasons why you could stop paying. And then there were programs to help people like that. And it was just communication. How can we help you get back on your feet? There were a couple people that took advantage of it or tried to, but ultimately, I mean, they're usually going to get evicted. So.
The other thing is on the question that was asked about, not to get too granular, but in a syndication, the general partnership team owns 30% of the deal and the limited partnership team owns 70% of the deal. So we'll do a 7% preferred return, which means that our investors have to get paid out that 7%, and then the general partnership team will start getting paid the general partnership piece. So if the deal is cash flowing 8.3%, once that 7% is hit, then the general partner team then gets the residual cash flow.